Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Lucas, for making time. You are in between racing in Berlin and Monaco, so he's squeezing us in between some auto racing. For those who don't know, Formula E, which Lucas helped to create, it's an all-electric version of kind of Formula One, so open-wheel cars, tight turns, the whole thing. And I wanted to talk with you first about that, how you went from racing combustion engine cars to racing electric vehicles, and how you helped to create this circuit in the first place, the dawn of the sport.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. It's a pleasure being here. Thanks for your time. Formula E, for people that is not familiar with motorsport, it's the same as any other racing series, but we started it in 2012 with the idea of creating a battery-powered electric car to race, to accelerate the development of technologies that you'll see in commercial vehicles in the future. So back in 2012, nobody was really talking about electric cars, or only a few people talking about the future of electric, but we saw that as an opportunity to create what motorsport has been doing for the past decades, which is to develop actually relevant technologies that we'll see in commercial applications. But not only that, also try to change, in a way, people's perception of electric car. So if you see a fast electric car racing around the track, you see that the car is exciting, the car is sexy, you're probably, when you have a higher likelihood of buying an electric car when you're going to purchase your next vehicle. So that was the core principle of creating Formula E, and that happened because back then, I was in Formula One, and in Formula One, they were already talking about hybrid engines. It was the first year when I was racing that they were starting to talk about efficiency, about electrification, and the clear next step was to come up with a full electric series. And that's how Formula E was created, and that's how my career shifted quite a lot, because after that, I raced in hybrid cars, and then now, for the past 9 years, I've been racing Formula E.
I want to go a little bit into, well, speaking of sexy hybrid cars, I drive a Chrysler Pacifica hybrid minivan. And so I know a little bit, I've driven EVs, I know what it's like, the difference between a gas car and an EV. I can go 0 to 60 in a little under 2 hours, usually. But I wonder, for a race car driver, that's a big transition. And if what that experience is like behind the wheel with the EV versus the traditional gas race car.
It is a very different experience. There's the personal experience and, of course, the technique of driving the car fast. I think the most personal experience, the difference between driving an electric car is that it's quiet. So for the purists, the first question I get for the past 10 years is that, oh, you drive an electric car an electric race car, don't you miss the sound? And I was like, yeah, kind of miss the sound, but it's not what actually makes the car go fast, it's not the sound. And you can hear the crowd. So in some races, if you are in a slow corner and everything is, you can hear the suspension moving, you can hear the tire, and you can hear the crowd. And in motorsport, you'll never be able to hear the crowd, of course, because the engine is so loud. So this experience changed a lot my relation to electric racing, but also in the terms of the technique, the car has so much torque. We have now the Generation 3 Formula E car. We are on the third generation car. It has two motors, one in the front, one in the back. The front motor has 350 horsepower. The one in the back has 450 horsepower. And the motor is this size. It's 20 kilos heavy. So you can put 4 motors and have 1,800 horsepower very easily in the car. It's just a matter of a decision. We have only one gear. The car goes from 0 to 190, 200 miles per hour with a single gear. The engine is 97% efficient and it's not, when you say 97, okay, that's maybe, but it's through the whole range of the RPM. You don't need a gear, you don't need gearbox, you don't need oil. And when you reach 97% efficiency, it's so high that you almost don't need cooling anymore because only 3% of the energy is dissipated as heat. So it's a big leap. And of course, the bottleneck are the batteries.
Right.
Batteries are heavy. The batteries, they don't last long. But the technology is evolving a lot. In the first year of Formula E, we had 2 cars because we couldn't do the race with a single car. True story. You can look at YouTube. So they made us jump from one car to another on the pit stop. I thought that was insane. Actually, it was insane. I got a lot of bruises because you need to jump out of the car. So you stop in the pit stop. Instead of the mechanics changing the wheel, you had to jump from one car to another. And in 8 seconds, gets belted in and drive off. And then generation 2, battery was big enough or energy dense enough that you could drive the whole race. And Gen 3 now has more or less 1 kilo per horsepower. The car can accelerate in less than 2 seconds. It's a big leap forward.
Right. No, that noise question, I love that because I once wrote a piece about guys who drag race Teslas against gas cars like in North Carolina and watching people encounter that for the first time when it just launches silently.
Yeah, the torque is instant,
Yeah.
right? It's different from a combustion car.
Right, yeah. But the tech transfer piece that you mentioned, I want to go back to because I think that's really interesting. We've seen this for decades in the automotive industry, disc brakes, independent suspension, all this stuff that is in cars now that everyday people drive started out in race cars. How are we seeing that already beginning to happen with electric vehicles, borrowing from what you are doing in Formula E?
Yeah, so there is many different technologies that we are actually racing now that you guys will see on the road in the next few years. The motor, as I just said, reaches a certain efficiency level that will increase range by maybe 5 to 10% in the near future. The fast charging, our batteries are capable of charging at 600 kilowatts, which means that it means 2 things. So in the racing, during the race, we don't use mechanical brakes. So the car has no brakes at the rear. There is no discs. There's no brakes at all. And in the front, we have a safety brakes, which are only used in qualifying. But in the race, 100% of the potential usable energy that the car is actually at speed is recuperated into the battery. So when you brake, you recuperate all that energy. You have no wear on the disc. There's no brakes, all magnetic brakes. The capacity of charging is 93%, which also is like almost twice as much as some of the vehicles we have there. And that means that you can actually fast charge the car with a charger at 600 kilowatts, which means in a conventional vehicle, you'll be able to charge your car in maybe 5 minutes, full battery. So these technologies are being tried out in the racing, and then we will see that in the future very soon.
Right. And the other piece you mentioned is a common sort of one for sport across the board of just changing perceptions, changing awareness. I mean, we look at sports, football, soccer, there's talk about these events like the World Cup. They're hugely emissive and in a way unnecessary, right? But they also are these huge platforms for athletes to talk about what matters to them and maybe cause change. In this case, it's a really, you're practicing the thing that you're asking people to change in a way, right? So how does the sort of public awareness piece work with Formula E? Who are you reaching and what is the message that you're bringing?
Yeah, motorsport is a unique sport because you're developing the technology in parallel with awareness. So at the same time the technology evolves, those technologies we just talked about, also you have big reach and you can promote this technology, you can promote the electric vehicle, you can promote the message that you want to pass to the fans. Other sports, they don't do that. Like which technology, I don't know, football developed? Pretty much, I don't think none. That goes directly from the pitch to our daily lives. But of course, the awareness of the sports people and some celebrities are very important to transmit the message, considering the message is a good one. Yeah.
Right. And you are not off the track. You are also involved in clean air initiatives for the UN. And we were talking a little bit about how that piece of emissions sometimes gets overlooked, that you're talking about just pollution, and that with electric vehicles versus traditional combustion engines, but really any e-fuel, there's an important difference that you think sort of is decisive. I wonder if you could sort of talk about that.
Yeah. So there's a lot of talk about different fuels, what's going to be the next, let's say, technology that is going to be used. And my work with UN started in 2017. And the message I want to use, that I want to, together with UN, to put forward is that electric cars, they contribute, if any, a very little amount to climate change as a whole. Of course, it's something positive. Depends your energy matrix, depends how you produce your energy. There's a lot of nuances we can discuss for 3 hours. The full cycle of production of the vehicle, only the mileage, the emissions here or there. But what we cannot ignore, and is much more important, is air pollution. We are here in the middle of Manhattan. I'm from Sao Paulo. I've been to Delhi. I've been to Mexico City. The amount of hours, days, maybe months lost due to air in lifespan, due to air pollution is huge. And electric cars, they cut that. You can have a biofuel car, you can have an e-fuel car, but, I mean, they pollute in the same way. Maybe they are carbon neutral, but if you lock yourself in a garage, like we discussed, if you lock yourself in a garage and you turn on your biofuel car, you die the same way as a normal car. So electric vehicles, they reduce drastically, well, they emit zero pollution. So the air quality that we're talking about will improve massively the lives of people worldwide, especially in dense-packed cities. So definitely battery-powered electric cars in those cities are going to be the future.
Right.
Not biofuel, not e-fuels, not hydrogen for private cars.
Right. Were there questions from the... We have just a little time left. Checking. One here. Ah, there we are. Go ahead.
I forget his name right now, but the boss of F1 recently said F1 is always going to stay with IC. It's never going to go electric. Do you have a comment?
Yeah, so that's a great question.
He asked basically whether Formula One would ever go electric.
Yeah, Formula One, IndyCar, NASCAR. What's going to happen with these categories if not the future of cars are electric? And I think that there is only two scenarios. If they want to stay relevant to commercial vehicles, they will have to go electric at one point, or they don't. They become a pure entertainment platform. They focus on other technologies. They can focus, for example, in light construction techniques. They can focus on e-fuels. E-fuels are going to be used, yes, in aviation, most likely. One way to decarbonize the aviation industry is not electrifying aviation. Would be most likely to put e-fuels. So you could use some of these technologies that you develop in a Formula One car, in a combustion engine, to kind of transfer to a different industry. But it's a decision that they have to make. But from our perspective, from Formula E, the new fans, the older generation, I would say even my generation, they are very attached to the sound and to combustion. It's something that you grew up with. But the new generation, they almost don't care. And if we do a good job with Formula E, it will create the new audience that will be agnostic about how the car is powered.
Very good. Was there any? I think we have maybe one more here.
Your thought about electric cars helping with pollution, but not with climate change.
Yes.
Are you simply saying that it's displaced from a dense area, the pollution, and hence negative impact on climate change is simply displaced? And so, for instance, if New York City area has an AQI which is 50 compared to Delhi 500, so you don't need that?
That's a great question. So basically, what's the difference between pollution and climate change, and how electric cars can help with that? So if you take all passenger cars worldwide, it represents about 3 to 4% carbon emissions, carbon dioxide emissions. So if all of them go electric, and the energy production to charge those cars are also fully renewable, we're talking about a mitigation of 3 to 4%, not including the process of building those cars. So it is relevant. It is for climate change. Do we need electric cars to be 100% or to be net zero in the future? We need electric cars. But we're talking about UN estimates about 4 to 5 million deaths a year prematurely due to air pollution. And air pollution is not binary. You don't have or you don't have. There is air pollution everywhere. It's just a matter of how much. Like you said, I've been to Delhi. I did a documentary on air pollution there, and some points it gets 999. The sensor went through the roof, really, and stops, goes to the maximum. And that, I went to hospitals, I spoke to doctors. The situation is critical. There are millions and millions of people that suffering with chronic respiratory disease because of air pollution. It's all caused by cars? No, but cars are a massive contributor to that. And here, I guess, is one of the main ones. So even if Manhattan, for example, has a lower AQI than Delhi or Sao Paulo, still your quality of lives and your kids, they will be better off if all the cars here are electric. You're riding your bicycle from here to another place you want to go, you'll be healthier by not inhaling those harmful gases. So if we have the technology, we have the capacity to do that, we should do it. And then there is the nuances of how the energy is produced. If the energy is produced by fossil fuels, they are basically, they could be mitigated because it's in a single place, so it's already better, but the carbon emissions, they stay there. So it depends on how the energy is done. For example, in Brazil, the energy matrix is 80% renewable. So an electric car in Brazil is actually electric. But an electric car in China maybe, or in other places which the matrix is very coal-based, even Germany now, even with gas, it's not purely electric. Of course, there is emissions from the energy grid.
Good. We have to wrap. We could go all day, but we're out of time. I apologize. This has been fascinating, and I really appreciate you making the time.
Thanks, Thank you very much.